Welcome to this live town hall with Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown. Your moderator tonight is Michael A. Charbon.
Brown. My name is Michael A. Charbon, being your moderator for tonight. You can watch us on Facebook. You can watch us on YouTube. You can also leave a comment and a question at citystudio.ca/, I should say, Ask Brown. That's citystudio.ca/Ask Brown. Well, let's bring him on, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Patrick Brown. Welcome, Mayor Brown. How are you, sir? Oh, you've got his... Try that again. We had your microphone muted.
Great to be back on with you.
Beautiful. Just to start off here, you and I did not talk before this program. You don't know what my questions are. We haven't spoken, so everything that you're going to get from me is live and off the cuff, and that's just the way we like it. Will you confirm that to anybody who's watching?
I have not spoken to you at all since the last town hall.
There you go. Perfect. So, first of all, thanks for joining us. I hope everybody who's watching that the weather's good where you are. We had one person who called in and they were very unlit, as one would say. That's because they had a little power outage. First thing I want to talk about, Mayor Brown, is COVID. COVID's really starting to move away. We're coming back to some semblance of normalcy. There was an excellent clinic at Sheridan College that inoculated hundreds and hundreds of people, and it was very successful. Of late in the media, you've been talking about inoculating essential workers and hospital workers. And there's a lot of factory workers, a lot of essential workers who live in Brampton and work in other places. How is that going? How is it going to be able to get those essential workers in Brampton inoculated?
Well, it's gone actually very well. Initially, my concern during the vaccine rollout is the national government was treating every province the same, and the provincial government was treating every city the same. And that's not the way this virus works. It attacks a densely populated urban area differently than it would a rural setting. It attacks a crowded factory differently than it would someone has the comfort to work from home. And it's why the best physicians and scientists all said, if you're going to fight a fire, fight the fire where it's actually happening. And the flawed rollout at the beginning wasn't sophisticated enough to combat COVID-19. In May, after, I guess, relentless frustration where we were voicing our concerns in the media, the provincial government adapted and prioritized the hotspots. And with that, we saw COVID case numbers drop dramatically. And we're now in a position where our vaccination rates are very encouraging. So let me give you an example. We have some of the highest vaccination rates now in the industrialized world. You look at
we broke a record actually at the center down there where the Leafs play, right?
Yeah, they if you look at the vaccination numbers in Peel, approaching 80% for first dose, over 30% now for second dose. It's just really impressive numbers, well in excess of what we've seen in the U.S. And for a long time we were jealous of the U.S. in terms of their vaccination numbers. So we made tremendous progress, but let's keep it up, because the more people that are vaccinated, the less ability this virus will have to move around in our community and mutate.
So two little questions here. One, people who are fully vaccinated, when will they be able to walk around without a mask on? And what is going to be the process moving forward for the people who are working at City Hall with respect to wearing masks or not wearing masks?
So first of all, outdoors, you can feel confident walking around without a mask. The scientific advice outdoors is that it's very low risk. I think we're going to see masks, though, for a while indoors until the pandemic is fully under control internationally. So I don't think you're going to see masks disappear in indoor settings anytime soon. Although, if you look at the World Health Organization advice, it's that fully vaccinated people can safely be together indoors without masks. But I think in terms of general shopping with people you don't know, it looks like that mask bylaw is going to be here for a little bit longer.
The good point is that we're allowed to go to restaurants, social distancing, and still doing our takeout. The restaurants are slowly coming back, still difficult, but we encourage everybody out there to take advantage of your local restaurant and, visit your local business. Very important. The hair salon and the nail people are really crying the blues because they have yet to be able to gain any traction. Any idea when we're going to be able to get those people back to work? Yeah, you need a haircut too, by the way. I'll just
tomorrow. We ran a lobbying campaign in Brampton to
get your haircut.
To get the personal services sector open, and the province listened. They're being reopened early tomorrow, so it's going to be great to see those hair salons, those barber shops, those nail salons back on their feet. This has been a really tough year for them, and so it's long overdue.
Bylaw enforcement is another situation. We've seen many stories in the media of large parties taking place in the Brampton area where there have been large parties which circumvent the law. Are your bylaw enforcement officers still going to be as vigilant in being able to curb those instances?
Well, as we reopen, they're going to be you're going to be allowed to have outdoor functions again. Right now it's limited to 25, but as we get into stage 2 and 3 of the reopening, you're going to see more leniency on those numbers. And if you look at some other provinces, they're already up to 150. So I know last year we had concerns of social gatherings beyond what was allowed. But by and large, Brampton has adapted. I can tell you last week, Paul Vicente reported at our weekly press conference that for the first time in a year, there wasn't a single bylaw infraction in Brampton, which shows a high level of compliance, that people understand what the rules are, and at least the government's adapting the rules to make them more reasonable.
As a segue on the bylaws here and bylaw enforcement, we had a question from a viewer who wanted to ask you about bylaw enforcement. There are people who are parking the vehicles, larger vehicles that they use for work, and they're asking why or how can they get more bylaw enforcement, because they're finding it difficult to park, difficult for people on the sidewalks. Sometimes it's impeding people with wheelchairs. What would be a process for someone who wants to get that problem resolved?
So if someone notices that there's like a tractor trailer parked on the street that was blocking, impeding access, that's obviously not allowed. Call 311 and ask for bylaw. And once you issue a complaint, they will investigate it. But you have to actually issue the complaint before a bylaw officer will go out there. Sometimes people assume the bylaw officers are out there patrolling every street. Obviously, a city the size of Brampton, that's not possible. So if you see someone who's breaching a local bylaw, simply call it in.
So not to say that that's not the correct path. The information that we have gotten back from this particular viewer is that they have made several phone calls in this particular instance, and they haven't seen anybody come through. Or are the bylaw enforcers, they're still giving out tickets? That was basically what this individual had expressed to us, that they had called and there hadn't been any resolution or anybody that had come by.
So we got great bylaw officers. Paul Morrison, JP Maurice, they run a really impressive team. We've added new bylaw officers to the city fleet, and sometimes they'll come by and they'll find out that the person is not in breach. But if you call a complaint, then it will be investigated.
Persistence, yeah.
But you may not always get the response or the result that you want, but it will be investigated. But sometimes some of the complaints that are called in are legitimate.
Yep. Well, we'll check back with that person and encourage them to continue calling in and trying to get more people. Final question with regards to the COVID scenario. Canada Day coming up, fireworks, bylaws, are there going to be any displays that the city of Brampton is putting on? I've seen some message boards in certain parks saying that you can't set off fireworks. Do we know what the bylaws are with respect to setting off fireworks in Brampton, and is the city putting on any free shows?
So you are permitted to have short-range fireworks, not long-range fireworks on Canada Day, and we are going to have our own show. So you don't need to put on a personal show. It won't match what the city is going to put on at the CA Center. You can drive down there, you can park your car and watch a beautiful fireworks display. I know it's a bit of a different Canada Day. As you know, we are, I think, still shaken by the discoveries of the tragedies with Canada's Indigenous population, with the mass grave sites at residential schools. And so I think this year is very much a reflective Canada Day as we look back from the past and try to learn to build a more inclusive country in the future. But I do believe that Canada's potential is enormous, that we can be that land that is just and a land of opportunity, a land of freedom, and that's what we're going to be celebrating this year: Canada's potential and learning from the past.
So let's pivot to some good news coming to Brampton. That's Guelph and Humber College. There's about 400 Brampton employers who take on students from the Guelph area as, how should one say, the summer jobs and the experience. So the Guelph and Humber College University said that the largest city that makes application to go to their schools comes from Brampton. And there's been an announcement that potentially in Ward 1, there's going to be the Center for Innovation, and that Guelph and Humber College will be opening up in Brampton, which could be a potential of 5,000 students, revitalization of the center of Brampton. What can you add to that? That's really good news. Do we have a time frame?
So it is really good news. This is a big win for the city, and it shows there's really exciting initiatives afoot when it comes to post-secondary education. First of all, we've landed the med school, which will be coming to Brampton, the partnership with Ryerson University. Now with Guelph Humber locating in our downtown, in our innovation district, and that's going to be on an ambitious schedule. It's going to be over the next few years that process unfolds, and they're going to work with the city right now on the design component for our Center for Innovation. And don't forget, we're still pushing full steam ahead for our Brampton University. Brampton University is our larger goal, that we want to have our own university. We're the only big city in Canada that doesn't have our own university. And so just like we were making an impassioned plea to get a new hospital, we're making a similar plea to get our own university. And I think whether it's the med school or Guelph Humber, these academic footprints, including the existing ones of Algoma and Sheridan, they can all fit into a post-secondary academic ecosystem in Brampton. And if you look what's happened in Kingston, or you look what happened in Kitchener-Waterloo, there's huge spin-off from academic investments. And so I'm grateful that we have a council that's been passionate about creating academic opportunities for young people in Brampton. And I got to give credit to two councillors who have been particularly passionate about this. Councillor Rowena Santos has been more passionate than you can imagine on the dream of having our own university. And credit also to Councillor Harkirat Singh. He was the one that initially flagged for me that Guelph Humber may be a potential partner for the city. And we went to Guelph Humber, met with the leadership there. So those two councillors have really gone above and beyond. And I'm lucky as mayor that we've got outstanding councillors like them that give back so much to the city.
So the Center for Innovation will be built in Ward 1. That's Rowena Santos and Paul Vicente's Ward 1 area. Any idea where that's going to be?
Yeah, so if you go to the Brampton website, we actually outline our whole Center for Innovation right in the heart of the downtown. And you can take a look at brampton.ca, but we've actually got some really exciting initiatives happening in the downtown. So I'm glad you asked about this. Not only are we building the Center for Innovation only a few blocks from City Hall, but we have Beehive that just opened, which is the international soft landing spot for tech companies. We're going to have 200 tech companies at Beehive. The downtown revitalization efforts that council has been discussing lately are downtown reimagined, enhanced. It's not going to be just some pretty streetscaping. We're talking about a much larger investment, a more muscular downtown revitalization. So there's some really exciting things happening in the downtown. We now have Riverwalk funded from the federal government, the GO train expansions. Brampton's a place to be. If I was an investor right now, I'd say invest in downtown Brampton, because the changes we're going to be seeing over the next 5 to 10 years are going to be remarkable.
Well, that definitely answers a bunch of questions that I've been reading online. They want, when are you going to revitalize the center of the city? And it sounds like things are rolling. Let's switch again. Scandal, always a scandal. There's a couple of points here. Gurpreet Dillon now has been fined $20,000 to refund the cost to the city. And the Integrity Commissioner is also fined him $20,000. Former Councillor Sporbieri came in front of council and spoke to Mr. Dillon's innocence, if you wish. And now the province is now reviewing why the Integrity Commissioner cannot fire a councillor. Is this finally done with now, or are we finished with this? And is there going to be more hearings with regards to the province looking into if an Integrity Commissioner finds fault in a councillor, that they can remove that councillor from serving?
So it looks like there's all party consent in the legislature for, if there are serious acts, that there'll now be a process, serious wrongdoings. There'll now be a process for removal of a councillor. This was initiated by a Liberal MPP from the Ottawa area, but found support in both the Progressive Conservative Caucus and the NDP caucus and the Green Party caucus. And I think it's an important mechanism. It will go to a judge, so it will not be a political decision. It will go to a judge to determine whether the act was egregious enough. And so we're talking about things like sexual assaults or corruption that really would demean the office the individual councillor represents. This will not be for this term of office. You can't be retroactive. What the Parliament is proposing will be for future terms of office. And I think this is an accountability measure that is entirely appropriate. Other jurisdictions have recall mechanisms. That doesn't exist in Ontario. So to have a process where, if there has been a criminal offense committed, that individual certainly doesn't have the right to continue to represent constituents.
So I had this question on my list, and we actually got an email from a viewer who actually pointed this question as well. It was about, there was a publication that here commented that you secretly directed city staff to campaign for the leadership bid last year for McKay. I don't know what the validity of this is, and I haven't heard or seen a response. I want to give you the opportunity to comment on that. I mean, I don't know what this means, and it's a year ago, but it's still, someone feels that it is of importance. I want to give you an opportunity to comment on that.
Yeah, so I haven't seen that article, but I would say I don't think it's any surprise that Peter McKay is an old friend of mine. We served in Ottawa together for 9 years. As mayor of Brampton, I have stayed nonpartisan because it's my responsibility to work with all political parties to enhance and push Brampton's agenda. And I've welcomed political leaders from all political parties into Brampton City Hall to tell them what's important for our residents, whether it is Stephen Del Duca, when he was running for the Liberal leadership, came to visit us at City Hall. Mike Schreiner, the leader of the Green Party, did so as well. We've had numerous Liberal cabinet ministers and provincial PC ministers visit, and Peter McKay did visit once last summer, and there was many people who asked for me to introduce them to Peter, and I was happy to do so. If anyone wants to meet a friend, I'm happy to make an introduction.
Last time we talked about the CAO. There was a little bit of discussion with regards to this. Is there anything further to add to that discussion? I had one person who commented that they didn't think that the situation was resolved, and I just want to give you an opportunity to comment on that.
Well, there's a little bit of an update. So the police have declined to investigate it, finding that there wasn't any criminal aspects to the complaint. The ombudsman at this point has declined to investigate it as well. The city council wants to do our due diligence, so we engaged a third-party review of the allegations that were sent to us, and so we engaged Deloitte to do a thorough third-party review. That review will be completed at the end of the summer, and with our recommendations on how we can enhance transparency. Obviously, would be great in any.
So we've got a little bit of a bad connection from you, Mayor Brown. So we'll just stay with us, folks. We have a storm. There you go. That's better there. Okay, sorry. My other question was with regards to Highway 413. There's some people who say that Highway 413 is an absolute necessity, must be taken care of. Other people said that it's got to be. There's a lot of crackling going on here. Do we hear the crack? Did we lose the mayor, Baz?
Difficult to hear you, Michael.
Okay, he's having difficulty hearing me as well. Okay, so this was with regards to a question on Highway 413. There were some people who were speaking to the point that it's going to endanger some of the wildlife areas that's on the outskirts of Brampton, and others feel that 413 is an absolutely necessary roadway. Do you have any comment as to how we can work with that?
So hopefully you'll be able to hear me without the crackling, Michael, but I was able to make out your question. I would say that, okay. Are you able to hear me, Michael?
Yes, I can still hear you. Yep.
So I was going to say that the federal government has decided to do an additional review on the proposed 413 GTA.
So I think we've got a bit of a bad connection with the. Sure, we can have the. Yeah, we did have this is interesting. We had a question from a guest, and when we did our a tech prep, he was in shadows, so it was almost like he was trying to be anonymous, but he was having a power out. Let's see if we can bring that guest up, Faz. Alex, are you there? There you go. You got light. Alex, welcome to Live Town Hall with Mayor Brown. Thank you very much for how did you connect to us? Facebook or YouTube?
Facebook.
Facebook, good. So did you have a question for Mayor Brown, or did you have a comment with regards to what's happening now in the city of Brampton?
Well, in relation to Highway 413, just have to say I'm a big fan of the Boulevard option, and that was definitely one of my questions for Mayor Brown.
What about the revitalization of what's going to happen to the city of Brampton? I mean, you can see with the potential of the college and the university coming down here. Is that going to have an implication on you and on what you're going to do in life with regards to Brampton? Is the university going to impact you?
As a young person living in Brampton, I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of advocating it. I'm currently going to university at Ryerson, and that's only because there was no option for a university in Brampton. Mm-hmm. I would have loved to go to Brampton for university. I would have loved to stay here. This is my home, and it's our downtown. It needs work.
So when we talk about revitalization of the downtown, there are some big plans, and I think Mayor Brown pointed to Brampton.ca, which has a lot of the plans. Are there certain things to which you feel Brampton is lacking that you wish that he had more of, as far as attractions, entertainment, services concerned?
I think downtown Brampton with the Riverwalk, it's with the funding, with the funding and the TRCA business being finished, and they're now not being a flood zone area, or they're now working on it. I think that's a great opportunity for Brampton to leverage its core, just because we already have these rail lines, which are great. We have the we might have an LRT. There's discussion of that. It's such a great transit area for the city to leverage.
Okay, so final comment from you, Alex. If you could wave your magic wand, and what would be the one change that you'd want to see right now as far as Brampton's concerned?
I definitely want to see more when it comes to transit. I want to see more for making the city more accessible, and transit making the city more sustainable and exciting to young people like me.
Perfect. I thank you very much, Alex, for your comments and your questions. Appreciate you standing by for us. And I think we're going to go back to Mayor Brown. Thanks, Alex. Mayor Brown, let's put him back on the hoop. There you go.
Okay, we're having a bit of a thunderstorm in Brampton. Maybe, I don't know what happened there.
So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to comment on 413, Highway 413. Alex was a big fan of that. There's a lot of people who feel that Highway 413 is a necessary parallel that needs to access Brampton. Others are saying the green belt, etc. Where do you stand on the development of that?
So Brampton put forward an exciting proposal where we'd actually have a boulevard in the urban area. So it was a compromise proposal that put the considerations of the environment and dealing with gridlock together. We do need to move cars. We do have a gridlock traffic problem in Brampton, but we also want to not do the same traditional highways that have been done before. And so the Brampton Boulevard proposal, or the highway turns into a boulevard in the urban area, we thought was a winner.
Yep.
Having said that, it may still be. The federal government has decided to do an EA, an environmental assessment on this project, and that's going to take some time. And so the entire conversation on the GTA West corridor is paused pending that federal environmental review. And Brampton has put forward what we believe is a reasonable compromise solution.
Just to circle back to the COVID again, there was a couple of people asking about what vaccines are available. I know at the Sheridan Center, it's Moderna that they're giving. As you can see, Sheriff Snow wanted to ask about Pfizer and about people who got their first shot. How are we going to handle people who only got one shot and only want to have one shot when governments are now talking about vaccine passports and the validity of having two vaccines? I wonder how difficult it's going to be for municipalities to decide for themselves or have to follow provincial guidelines. It's going to be a bit of a mess, is it not?
So I believe there'll be protocols developed internationally. I don't think it'll be developed at a local level or even a provincial level. I know it was a recent discussion at the G7, and I imagine countries will have protocols to enter their sovereign territory. We are encouraging everyone to get both vaccines. Right now, Ontario has had shipments of Moderna. They have limited Pfizer supply at the moment, and so for the next few weeks, the Pfizer is reserved only for those under 18. But we will be getting more Pfizer shipments, so there'll be more Pfizer available. But as Dr. Lowe has told me, it's like choosing between two luxury cars. Both Moderna and Pfizer are incredibly effective at saving lives. These are sophisticated vaccines that are very similar, that will protect you against what can be a deadly disease in COVID-19.
I know at Sheridan Center, McLaughlin and Steeles, they have Moderna there, and I encourage everybody to sign up and get your vaccine. There's been a comment on street racing. This is something which has happened quite regularly, and this person called in because they were a bit upset because of the reoccurrence of lots of street racing happening in Brampton. It's one of those things where the people with the cars decide to go to certain places and certain roads, and then it becomes a dangerous circumstance. The unfortunate reality is eventually we're going to have a great accident, and it's going to affect people. What can residents do to alert the police with regards to street racing, and how can we combat that?
So we are taking it more seriously. The Peel Police have had a number of surveillance efforts to combat street racing, to make sure people that are street racing, that we throw those keys away, that they're not the people that should be driving. We've had tragedies where lives have been lost because of reckless driving, and we can't tolerate that type of irresponsible conduct. But the police can't be everywhere. So we're looking at our own mechanisms to hold people accountable who are endangering the lives of their neighbors. The provincial government has now allowed municipalities to put photo radar into school zones or community safety zones. We have started that process in Brampton. We have put out photo radar across the city in community safety zones. I know some people don't like photo radar. Well, then don't speed in a school area, and you don't have to worry about getting a ticket. It's as simple as that. Don't be an idiot. You're not going to get a ticket.
Let's go to a video question. Again, if you want to post your questions or your comments, you can see us on Facebook or YouTube. You can go to citystudio.ca/Ask Brown. Let's go to our first video question.
Hi, Mayor Brown. I am at Steeles Avenue and Financial Drive in the city's west end. And a couple of weeks ago, there was an accident here. Let me quickly flip my screen and show you. So Steeles Avenue is about almost 10 lanes wide at this intersection. And a couple weeks ago, a car flew through this grassy area and landed at the back of the City of Brampton sign, destroying a tree, destroying the decorative gating, and then completely destroying the sign, landing on the flowers that was planted in the spring, and there's still car parts here. So my question is, what are we doing about street racing in the city? And who actually pays for the repair at this intersection? Is it the taxpayer or is it the insurance company?
So similar about street racing, the Peel Police Chief Nishan has taken it very seriously. He's putting officers and units on it to get these people that are recklessly endangering the lives of our residents. And so he's using the tools available with the Peel Police to make sure that these people not only lose their license, they lose their cars. But they can't be everywhere. And so, like my previous answer, we have brought in photo radar into community safety zones. I would love advice from residents. Are there other tools that you would like us to look at to help mitigate street racing? Are there other tools that you'd suggest that we look at in the city? I've heard different suggestions, and some people have suggested speed bumps in some areas. We do have problems with speed bumps when it comes to snow removal equipment. So there are some roads that's simply not possible. You put up the signs where it says what speed people are driving, and we don't get a lot of changing behavior. I would say, though, that the photo radar is starting to change behavior. There's nothing as powerful as a big fat ticket. And we found on average in the areas that we've put in photo radar devices, the average speed is down but about 10 kilometers. So it is actually altering behavior.
Just to follow up, who pays for that damage? Does the city go after the insurance company or the driver who flew through there and damaged that city property? Or is that an unfortunate circumstance that the city has to deal with because it may cost too much to get the lawyers to try and sue the insurance company?
Yeah, and every case is different. In terms of the case that Faz was pointing to, I'll speak to our legal department and find out who compensated. There are different mechanisms for that, and the insurance company. There's a victim compensation fund. I'd have to find out in that particular case.
It's an unfair question to you. As I said, you had no idea. I mean, this is all out of left field, but it's one of those things as a mayor when someone complains about something like that, and it does come out of the taxpayer's pocket, and if it doesn't, it starts to irk people. So we appreciate video questions. We encourage everybody to join in. It's Facebook or YouTube. You can go to us at citystudio.ca/Ask Brown. Let's go to another video question.
Hi, my name is Haral Patel, and I'm born and raised in Brampton. My question for Mayor Brown is, what specific steps is the City of Brampton taking to help support small businesses in the downtown core and beyond as they begin the steps to recovery and pick themselves up off their feet as the stages of reopening continue to progress? Thank you.
Great question. I mean, everybody's talking about the revitalization of the center of Brampton. There were some comments previously with regards to, are we going to have big buildings? Are we going to have office buildings? I mean, we've seen all kinds of virtual discussions and pictures, and you pointed out to Brampton.ca for those people who want to visit and do that, but particularly about small businesses who have been adversely affected. Is there something the city is doing to help them from a real municipal standpoint?
First, I want to acknowledge that I fully appreciate this isn't just a health pandemic, it's an economic tidal wave. This COVID-19 has hit small businesses hard. It has been devastating. And I realize that programs that exist don't go far enough, that it doesn't replace customer bases that you are losing and the brand and equity that you've built up. And the start and the stops have just been so difficult on our small businesses. We have advocated to the provincial and federal governments for additional assistance for small businesses. Under the Ontario Municipal Act, we are not allowed to provide any funding for for-profit businesses. So we've tried to use the tools we're allowed to. We agreed that property taxes could be deferred and not forgiven. We're not allowed to do that, but deferred. We have launched marketing campaigns to support Shop Local Brampton. And for the not-for-profits that use city facilities, we've waived their rent. And we have a number of city facilities where that applies. I wish we could do more for small businesses, but that's not a tool that exists in the Ontario Municipal Act. But I'll continue to push the provincial government and the federal government to look at fiscal measures in which we can aid small businesses. They're the heart blood of the Canadian economy. And I worry there's going to be a lot of small businesses that are unable to keep their head afloat.
There's talk that we're going to have a federal election, Mayor Brown, in August. And Brampton, as we know, is very much liberal. Brampton is very transient in the sense that Brampton has voted conservative for one government and liberal for the next government. When you look at what your city requires and how the federal government can participate with you, what are some of the things that you wish to engage in with the federal government, conservative or liberal, whoever comes in? But how would you give ammunition to your constituents to press potential federal representatives in the city of Brampton to help better the city? What do we need from the federal government?
Well, I want to say, first of all, that we got a great working relationship with our federal MPs, and we've had some big wins on the Riverwalk project, on the new transit facility, the electrified buses, and I want to continue wins like that for the city of Brampton. There's going to be an opportunity to support a potential expansion of the LRT through infrastructure dollars. We need to further electrify our transit fleet. So there'll definitely be some infrastructure asked of the federal government that we can ask if there is a federal election. We intend to put our Brampton's needs into the forefront during the federal election if it happens. But once again, this is all speculation. There isn't a federal election called yet, but everyone that puts their name on the ballot, we expect to be aggressive, enthusiastic ambassadors for the city of Brampton. And we will use the federal election as an opportunity to highlight what the top priorities for the city are.
Can you identify one of those top priorities? Is it transit? Is it funding for transit? Is it funding for developing the downtown core of Brampton? Is it for funding universities? I mean, I guess it's all of that. But there are certain areas the federal government can fund, and there are certain areas they can't. So the federal government can't fund universities. They can't fund healthcare. We have to go to the provincial government for that. That's part of the division of responsibilities of the Canadian Constitution. But they can fund infrastructure. And so during this previous term, I think our biggest asks were really the transit facility that we got funding for, which was an enormous project, and Riverwalk, which will be a game changer for our downtown. I think going forward, we're going to be looking to the federal government to contribute to the LRT expansion. We want to get the LRT to the downtown, and City Council has outlined a preferred route, which is a tunneled route into the downtown. It's costly, but it is less per capita than what we saw the federal government give to Hamilton, Scarborough, Kitchener-Waterloo. And so I think there's an issue of equity there to make sure Brampton gets the same infrastructure dollars that the federal infrastructure dollars that other communities get. I also want to see our electrified buses expanded. Right now, they're in 2 routes. I want to see the entire Brampton transit fleet electrified. The current federal government has an ambitious plan to bring on 5,000 electric buses, and there's no better place to help them hit that goal than the city of Brampton, that is committed to going green, that is committed to changing our transit infrastructure to one that is environmentally sustainable. President Biden brought in a premise that he wanted to take the 700,000 federal fleet of cars and buses and electrify all of them. There are many pickup trucks that we see. There are many other elements. Is that something that you're interested in pursuing, that as the rollover of vehicles and trucks are concerned, that Brampton, I mean, you're an automotive town too. You have part of that performance too. Is that something that you would look to as a future perspective for the city of Brampton?
More than an automotive town, I would reference the fact that I'm a father, that I've got a daughter and a son, and I want to pass on to them the same environment that my parents passed on to me. There'll be no greater disservice to future generations if our generation drops the ball on protecting our environment. And I think every automotive company is going to have to adapt. They're going to have to adapt to clean technology, to being environmentally sustainable. And so if the question is, do I want to electrify every aspect of our fleet? 100%. And Brampton is already leading the way. We're about to have the first electric fire truck in the country. We're already leading the way when it comes to Brampton Transit, but every aspect of the city's fleet, we're going to have an eye towards electrifying it. If you look at where greenhouse gases come from, if you look at emissions, whether it's residential, whether it's from factories, whether it's from transit, there are large components, and we have to step up. We have to do our part. We have a goal of 80% reductions by 2050. We've got ambitious environmental targets, and we mean business. We're not simply setting targets and saying it's for someone else to achieve. We're trying to take concrete steps now to show that we're serious about the environment. And frankly, I think it's in our city's DNA. I'll tell you a little bit of a history tidbit, Michael. The first time Ontario had a Ministry of the Environment, it was because of Bill Davis. When he was premier in the 1970s, he created the Ministry of the Environment. It did not exist in Ontario before. And so I think there is some Brampton legacy here where it's in our genes to care about the environment.
Well, I think Bramptonians should be very proud. The electric fire truck, I actually saw that as a national piece coming on. So I applaud your communications department for getting that out, and we should make more of the positive innovations and things that Brampton is doing. We've got about 5 minutes left. I encourage everybody to continue to chime in. You can leave your questions and your comments after the show, because we talk to Mayor Brown every last Tuesday of the month. We start at 7 o'clock and we go to about 7:45 to 8 o'clock. Press upon the mayor's time. You can always get a hold of us through YouTube and through Facebook at citystudio.ca/Ask Brown. Final question.
Well, Michael, I was going to give one shout out before you ask your final question. I see a few of the comments have been from Foisia, and she runs a local shop that we talk about supporting local. It's called Occasions Treats, and I've gone there a number of times. If you want to get great cakes or treats or any type of dessert, check them out. They're phenomenal. Great for gifts. And I'll tell you a personal story. My nephews weren't going to get Halloween this year because obviously of COVID. So I went to Foisia and I said, get me the biggest chocolate bars you can so I can surprise my nephews. And she did not disappoint. So whatever your crazy ideas, take it to Foisia at Occasions, and they'll hit it out of the park.
Well, Foisia just asked a question. When is the revitalization project going to start in downtown?
Yesterday. Councillor Paul Vicente has been really on the ball on this. He doesn't want any delays. We've been having meetings with regional staff and local staff to get it going, and we're literally looking at what parts of the downtown revitalization plan can start as early as this summer. So the answer is immediately.
So final question. America is turning woke in many instances. There's a lot of diversity officers. There's a lot of people talking about affirmative action in the workplace, where some are saying that hiring is now based on certain aspects, not on merit or on education, but on ticking boxes to be able to address equity and equity officers. I know that the city of Brampton is going to be holding their second equity edit. How do you work that? I mean, it's a very difficult subject, and some would say that one always wants to hire someone based on best education, best suited, and best for the job. And now we have others who are saying that there should be more of a social reference, a hiring done more on, one would say, affirmative action or affirmative action in the business place. How do you deal with that? There's always been that question in Brampton that sometimes it doesn't necessarily reflect the same color of people that they're representing, but obviously everybody in the city wants to have the most qualified. But you run into the problem then that you can't not hire people because they're not the most qualified because they tick a box. So a little bit of a convoluted question, but this is a little outside of one would say that you were able to prepare for. But we did have a question which was talking about equity in hiring. And now this is a topic that's front and center, both in American politics and now in business. And being the leader of a city that is highly diverse, probably one of the most diverse in Canada, how do you deal with that question?
So
Tough last question.
no, but it's a question I welcome, and I think you have added some appropriate context there. Of course, we want to hire the most qualified people for every position, but I also know there are some systemic barriers that exist. We can't be naive about it. You know, I worry for decade after decade. You know, there was a bit of an old boys club, and you look at the city, and frankly, any big city, it doesn't seem to reflect the mosaic of the city. So we've been taking a very determined approach to trying to make sure we get more diversity at City Hall. And whatever systemic barriers exist, we're trying to rip them down. And sometimes that ruffles some feathers, you know, in terms of an old guard that may not have wanted things to change. We were not willing to accept the same old approach of a City Hall that did not reflect the community. And so when I look at some of the institutions of local government, we're seeing different results. You know, you look at the Peel Police, the last graduating class was the most diverse we've ever seen. But that's an intentional effort to go out and say, put an application in. And we're doing the same thing right now with Brampton Fire. We've had town halls with different cultural communities to really enlighten the community on opportunities of how to become a firefighter. And we're doing that with bylaw. We're doing that with every aspect of the city. I also want to say the notion that you can't find equally qualified individuals in these communities is incredibly offensive. And so, you know, we say that there's no issue of finding the right people who are the most qualified in every community. And you go to any community in Brampton, any part of our mosaic, and you find a wealth of talented individuals. But part of the challenge is transparency. How do you let people know how to apply for that job or apply for that contract? We know we've had reverse tendering trade shows at City Hall to actually let the public know this is how you bid through a tender process on city work. We had all the departments show the work that was going to be up, because jobs at City Hall aren't simply, you know, the 9-to-5 jobs. There's contract work that is a form of employment as well. So we are working in a very deliberative fashion to try to create an environment, an ecosystem in Brampton where everyone can be successful. We created an equity office. We created an anti-Black racism unit. And regularly I have conversations with employees at City Hall, unfiltered, no HR there, no legal there, and they just tell me their frustrations. We had one last week with a group of employees from a certain background. And I relish those opportunities because I want to hear unfiltered feedback on where there are challenges that exist. And I'm not gonna put rose-colored glasses on it. We've had problems in Brampton, and we're trying to fix that.
Excellent answer. Thank you, Mayor Brown, for your time today. We appreciate you coming on and speaking candidly. And again, it's always interesting to see a politician answer from his heart. Every Tuesday at the end of the month, we have an opportunity to sit down with Mayor Brown. We invite you to join us. You can ask questions. You can send a video question, as you saw. You can get us through Facebook or YouTube at citystudio.ca/Ask Brown. My name is Michael Lake Charbon. Thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate your questions and your comments, and we'll take them next time we meet. And that's at the end of every month on the Tuesday at 7 o'clock for a live town hall with Mayor Patrick Brown. Have a good evening, and thanks for watching.